This is so coincidental and unfortunate at the same time, but I was literally filming a video with my zebra plant right before this one, and oh my god, halfway through the video as I was filming it, I noticed that there are thrips on the plant. So perhaps we will have to do a follow-up video on how to get rid of the thrips. Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Caitlin from Leave Me Alone Plants, and today I am going to tell you the easy way that apparently nobody talks about for how to permanently get rid of fungus gnats from your plants and your household as a whole. Now, if you stumbled upon this video, congratulations! Thanks for finding me. I know there are literally a million videos on this on YouTube. Hopefully this method that I walk you guys through today will be helpful. Again, I really don't hear too many people talking about this. You may see them over here. I know a lot of people recommend, just doing a wash of peroxide or neem oil or using mosquito bits. Believe me, I have been down that path with all those methods, and I think they kind of work in the short term, but they've never really been a great long-term solution for me. So if you've tried those, if you are going crazy with these bugs in your house, then keep on watching and we are going to get into how to get rid of them forever right now. Now, if you want to get into the solution, I'll put the timestamp down below so you can fast forward right there. But I wanted to start out by giving just a little background on the life cycle and basically the inner workings of how fungus gnats behave and why they show up in your plants in the first place. So I think the important thing to say at the beginning of this video is fungus gnats can happen to anyone. That sounds like some kind of cheesy video for like STDs or something. But no, really, they can happen to anyone. Regardless of how good of a plant parent you are, regardless of how clean of a person you are, neither of those have any reflection on, if you get fungus gnats in your house. It literally happens to everyone with large plant collections. It is almost inevitable that if you have plants and you bring them into your house, this will happen to you at one point. So please, first off, do not feel bad or ashamed in any way if you have fungus gnats. It's happened to me. It probably has happened to every single person watching this video. So yeah. Now, really your first line of defense for, preventing this is when you are buying plants in person. Obviously you can't really do this if it's online, but when you're buying them in person, really do a quick search of the soil and just investigate and see if there is potentially any weird bugs or things on there that could potentially cause things to go awry in your household. Now, I will kind of admit I'm a little bit bad about doing this. An additional way to prevent this is quarantining your plants when you first bring them into your house. In the event that they do have, some kind of bug or disease on them, basically that will ensure that it doesn't spread to the rest of your collection. Now, because the life cycle of these fungus gnats is so short, you really only have to quarantine these plants for about 2 to 3 weeks to basically be sure that it doesn't have those fungus gnats in there. I know some people like to push it out to a month or 6 weeks. That's really comes down to preference, but again, the life cycle of these fungus gnats is very, very short, so you don't have to go crazy waiting it out. Basically, once they hit their adult phase where they're, the annoying thing that flies around and it always seems to be swarming around your head no matter where you go, is only a week long. They literally only have a week to live, but in that 1 week period, they can lay up to 300 eggs. So with that said, literally just one fungus gnat can cause things to explode exponentially very, very quickly. Now, the name fungus gnat actually comes from what they like to feed on. Kind of gross, but they really enjoy feeding off of dead plant matter and fungus in the soil. So you may notice that fungus gnats get kind of attracted to plants if you're overwatering them, or if they're plants at really moist soil. It's likely because that soil probably has some kind of residual fungus in there from being moist and dark. So again, that's where their name comes from, and that's what they feed off of. Now, even if you, for somehow reason, and I don't think this is anybody, but maybe if they don't bother you at all, you're like, hey, I love them. They're living in my house with me. It's a symbiotic relationship. The thing is, eventually they run out of fungus and decaying plant matter to eat in your plant pots. Eventually they will start to eat the roots of your plant. It's not their preferred food, but if they run out of other options and the colony gets large enough, that's their next option. So while they immediately aren't going to hurt your plants, over on a long enough timeline, if you let it get bad enough, they can definitely start to harm them from the bottom up. So finally, as I had said, this basically is going to be a solution that approaches getting rid of these gnats from their beginning life cycle to basically eliminate them before they even start. Once you implement this method, within a week, you should basically see the entire population of these fungus gnats in your house drop to 0. So don't worry if you are just losing your mind right now in no time flat, we will be able to get rid of these for you. Let's just say that this little aloe plant, by the way, it happens to be part of an ongoing plant experiment that you guys will learn about in the future. Let's say I suspect that this aloe plant has fungus gnats. Basically, there's two ways that I can really identify if it's this plant for sure. And do keep in mind that multiple plants in your house may have fungus gnats, so kind of just, really trying to identify down which plants the issue is coming from, because you need to catch them all to eliminate the problem in your whole house. The easiest way to realize which plants it is being caused by is go in and water your plants. When you water your plants, if that plant is indeed infested with a nest of fungus gnats, they are literally going to swarm out of there when you water it. They don't like the plant getting watered, so they are going to jump ship real fast. Additionally, you may be familiar with those little yellow sticky traps. Those are a great way for being able to identify specifically which plant is having the outbreak in it and which one probably has a nest in it. So if you put those all in your plants, you'll likely really be able to see which one has the higher density gnats on it, and that is likely the plant that your nest is living in. Again, I think sometimes these are marketed as like a way to eliminate them from your household, and I find that that is just not the case. Really, with just sticky traps alone, it's truly only a tool for being able to identify how large the population in a specific area of those fungus gnats is. It's going to do nothing for the eggs and the larvae in the soil, so it's definitely not a full solution for getting rid of them. Okay, so we identified what plants have the nests in them. Let's say it's just this one. This is when I bring up my handy dandy tool that for some reason nobody seems to talk about in these videos, my shop vac. Now, this shop vac I bought at Walmart years ago for probably $30. You can get these super cheap. You don't have to buy an expensive one. This is literally the cheapest one that they had. And I specifically dedicate it to just my plant stuff. I constantly suck up soil with this and it does just fine. That is exactly what we are going to use this for. So you, of course, are going to turn it on. What you are going to want to do is take the vacuum and suck up the first 2 to 3 inches of soil in your plant. Basically, what this is going to do is it is in theory going to suck up all the eggs, all the larvae, and all the adult flies that are in there. While fungus gnats can burrow into the soil, they basically can only burrow down into the first 3 inches. Well, maybe they can burrow deeper, but they tend to only burrow down into the first 3 inches. So basically, by sucking up that soil, was that a fatality here? By sucking up that soil, basically you are almost getting rid of that entire population in one swoop. From the eggs to the larvae to there's a stage in between that I can't remember the name of, to the adults. Okay, great. So now at this point, you basically have a plant with not really much soil in it. You, of course, are going to want to quickly dispose of what you vacuumed up with in, a sealed plastic bag and dispose of it somewhere that is not going to infect anything else. Backfill your plant with fresh, new, clean soil. From here, this is where these two things come in. You basically can choose whichever one of these you want. Either are going to work the same. You are going to either use the instructions for diluting it specifically for the neem oil that you buy. This is neem oil, by the way, I didn't mention that. Or if you are using hydrogen peroxide, which is what this is, you are going to want to do a 1 to 4 ratio of hydrogen peroxide to water. Now, basically the difference between these, neem oil is going to be a little more of an organic solution, completely safe for your plants, and the mites really don't like it. Personally, I don't love using neem oil, specifically because I just really hate the smell of it. So I tend not to use it, but with that said, I know it can be a little expensive. However, I have literally had this bottle forever, and you dilute it down a little bit. It literally goes a long way with this stuff. So I know it kind of is like sucks to have to buy it at first, but if you want to go the organic method, this is a great product to go with. On the other hand, if you are like me, hate the smell of neem oil, or just don't want to spend that much money right now, you can pick up a thing of hydrogen peroxide for typically like $1 or less. I know it can be a little hard to find right now with coronavirus, but if you can find it, this is definitely a cheaper solution. Again, you're going to dilute it down. One thing to note that I think a lot of people don't talk about with hydrogen peroxide. I know everybody's like, oh, it'll cure root rot. Thing is hydrogen peroxide in both plants and even in humans, which is why, if you go to the doctor, they're not cleaning out like wounds with hydrogen peroxide. It's for the fact that it can't differentiate between healthy cells and unhealthy cells. So if you have open wounds on your plant and it gets in there, it potentially has the ability to kill off those new healthy cells on the plant, as well as any residual issues with fungus gnats. Legends of Monstera does a really great video on hydrogen peroxide with plants. He's actually a doctor himself, so he comes at it from a really unique perspective. So after you watch this video in its entirety, feel free to check out that one. But okay, now that we've gone off on a 20-minute tangent on the difference between neem oil or hydrogen peroxide, basically choose whichever one suits your fancy and dilute it down. Once you have that solution made up, I want you to really thoroughly go in and water that plant that you freshly put new soil on with that solution. What that is going to do is, in the event that you missed any eggs or larvae that are deep in the soil, it is basically going to kill those on contact. Now, I know some people do talk about in their videos just spraying like neem oil on the top of your plants to get rid of fungus gnats. That again is not probably going to work, just for the fact that the eggs and the larvae are a couple inches down, so unless you're really dousing it down with your plants, it probably won't be enough to get rid of them all the way. And if you have adults that are flying out as you're watering it with them, they potentially can go into other areas. So that's why I prefer vacuuming out that soil first. I find that it is the best way to get rid of the majority of them ahead of time. Okay, so final step in here. We replace the top 3 inches of our soil in the plant. We watered it down with a solution to get rid of any residual eggs in there. Now what you're going to want to do to prevent more fungus gnats from going in there is you can start out with a layer of mosquito bits if you want. This is kind of overkill in my opinion, and personally, I don't know. I haven't had great experience with them, but you know, do your thing. If you want to use them, it's kind of like an added layer of protection. Fill in a layer of those mosquito bits on the top of your plant, and then what I like to go in with are these little pebbles. So basically, I just lay a thin layer of pebbles on the top of the soil, making sure that it's thin enough that new growth on the plant can still poke through those pebbles. But essentially what the purpose of this is that gnats aren't able to burrow into the soil as easily if you have that layer on there. Now additionally, you can use sand that will have the same effect. It really aesthetically is just comes down to what your preference is. To recap, we sucked out all life cycles with the vacuum first, basically ensuring that the vast majority of the colony was removed in that phase, then treated our soil with a wash of either hydrogen peroxide or neem oil to get rid of any residual eggs or larvae in the soil. And finally, we added a preventative layer of rocks and possibly mosquito bits to prevent adults from flying back into the plant and starting a new nest in there. Again, this strategy has basically allowed me to eliminate any fungus gnat problem with plants in my house. A couple years ago, I had the nastiest outbreak. I have tried so many things, from just mosquito bits alone to neem oil alone to peroxide washes alone. None of them work for me. So if you are in that position, you've tried so many things, you cannot get rid of them for the life of you, I highly, highly recommend trying this method. It worked for me, and I hope it worked for you too. If you have questions about anything that I had done in this method, or comments on what worked for you, please drop them down in the comment section down below. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, but just because something didn't work for me doesn't necessarily mean that it won't work for you. So yeah. Hopefully this helps you out. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and if it was helpful and you potentially are interested in that thrips video, then hit the subscribe button so you can see that in the future, because I need to address that real fast. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.